Facebook Libra?
Well, say Facebook Libra is something which they try to build to cut the corners on getting the banking licenses.
Right.
So they want to build. So they obviously Facebook controls lots of data on us, right? And now they want to go deeper and to get the data of how we spend, basically to get the information about our wallet, to get into our wallets. So how can they do this? They want to build a payment system. Now, so to build a payment system, you need to be licensed in every country you operate. And my view on this is that they're trying to use the blockchain rails to avoid this sort of licensing. So there are more questions than answers so far, because there are questions to the technology, there are questions to, is it centralized? At least on the first stage, it will be centralized because the participants of the consensus algorithm will be companies, the members of this foundation, or how they call it. So it won't be this decentralized blockchain like Bitcoin. So it'll be centralized. Then they plan to make it decentralized, but when it happens, nobody knows. So that's the first question. Second question is, will the technology allow actual transaction processing speed necessary to maintain this amount of users? This is a big question, because nobody done this. Well,
and how secure would it be? Let's say they can handle a large transaction volume. Usually that's coming at a cost of what consensus algorithm they're using, and therefore, how strong and robust and secure is that solution that they've put in place.
Yeah, but I think the main question is a regulatory question and the sanctions and stuff like that. So somewhere the question, what will happen if a citizen of the banned country like Venezuela or what have you, sanctioned country Cuba, start using platform for payments? So what shall Facebook do in this case? So, and another thing is that even if they build this and this will become a payment system, say this is not a real cryptocurrency. This is just a payment system using blockchain rails, right? It's not a cryptocurrency. So this will not. So this will be in parallel to Bitcoin and everything else.
Right.
This is a competition to Visa or PayPal or what have you, rather than a competition to Bitcoin.
Well, essentially, they're inventing their own currency, aren't they? That's essentially what they're doing. They're creating.
PayPal, if you look at PayPal is a stable coin, right? So it's a wallet. It's centralized provider. So you send them the dollars or euros or what have you, and then you use this to pay wallet to wallet. So this is a stable coin, right?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really interesting point. So for Facebook, then really it's no different to like how PayPal got integrated with eBay. Essentially, Facebook is just going to have its own operating currency.
Absolutely. So
with wallets and everything.
Their own PayPal. That's
their own PayPal, and of course that's causing a lot of concern. It's interesting for me, being a bit of a futurist. My view on that is this is going to happen anyway. Lawmakers might not be comfortable with it now. It might take 5 years for it to start to get accepted, but it feels to me like the internet is going to be how all economies are transferred. It's all going to happen like this. It might not be Facebook to be, the first. It could be maybe some other social media platform, who knows, but more likely Facebook. I just feel like this is inevitable. Whether or not Japanese banks are happy with it or not, or US lawmakers are happy with it or not, feels like it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, but it happened. So PayPal exists since quite a long time ago.
Right.
Web Money and other providers. So there's nothing new. What is new is that they're trying to use blockchain rails for that.
Right.
But otherwise, from the user perspective, it's nothing different than PayPal at all.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that you say it's not a cryptocurrency in itself. So the blockchain rails, can you explain the difference between the blockchain rails and a cryptocurrency?
Well, it all goes to the decentralization or centralization.
Mm.
So a blockchain can be permissioned, which means that it is centralized. So it's managed by the closed circle of the participants, and these participants actually maintain the consensus. So
Right.
Libra uses BFT protocol, which is which exists since, I don't know, 40 years or something like that, 30 years now. So this is nothing new with BFT protocol, or maybe, I don't know, 20.
Got it.
Yeah, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
So it has been in existence before Bitcoin, actually.
Yeah. No, thanks for your insight on that. I was curious because I find it kind of fascinating that Facebook wants to essentially create its own currency, its own way of transferring payment in its own ecosystem. Bear in mind, billions of people are on Facebook. So that's a lot of transaction volume that we're open
but I
to.
probably remember that it's not the first attempt to do that. And the first one was Telegram.
Right.
Telegram raised, it's a totally same idea. So Telegram raised allegedly $1.8 billion to do that. So obviously they couldn't spend everything for development. So they kept a big portion of this money for future liquidity provisioning to the system. But nobody knows what's happening now. So once the technical white paper has been published, so there were same questions from my side that I'm not quite sure that this technology will be capable of transacting as many transactions per second as they need. And the use case for this is not very clear. And here we go. So there's nothing yet released. And as we know from the conditions of this investment, so if the network is not up and running by October this year, so they have to pay investors back.
Got it. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, let's follow this and let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Visa, for example, they're dealing with something like 2,000 to 3,000 transactions per second, or something like that. I think
it's even more now. Yeah, 3,000.
Yeah. And really, I mean, with Bitcoin, we're seeing, I don't know, what are we seeing with Bitcoin? Something like 50 or 100?
No, it's 7, I think.
7. I'm way off the mark, but considerably less.
Yeah.
There are, of course, other cryptos out there that are using like delegate proof of stake, DPoS and whatever that can be faster, but they're then less secure.
But the problem is that the transaction capacity is not the function of the consensus protocol. It's the function of the block size.
Yes.
And the frequency of the blocks. And the thing is that blockchain, if it's decentralized, so the problem is in the amount of data which needs to be stored. Because basically, if this decentralized system with thousands of nodes, every node keeps the copy of the database. And therefore, it's massively inefficient because you need to maintain thousands of copies of the database. And that's why it's slow, because you need to make sure that every copy is the same as so they are in coherence. So that's the main problem. So the data, there is huge overhead on the data being sent of the network. Now, if you do anything permissioned, like Libra, when you say, okay, there are like 20 or maybe even 100 nodes, but not 1,000, and this is permissioned, and this is sort of validator nodes, then only those nodes need to maintain the copy of the database. You're artificially scaling down and removing this the part of this overhead. So that's it. But it becomes centralized.
Right. So in a closed system, or with Libra, for example, that's why you can have the transaction speed, because it's not a totally decentralized system, right?
Yeah, of course. There's no magic here. Now, even obviously centralized system is the most efficient. But you can have like a cluster of 100 nodes for fault tolerance, for copying or keeping the copies of the database, and it will be centralized system. So it's no different from permissioned blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, no, Dimitri, thanks. That's all the questions I had on Libra for now, but for sure, I think there'll be some more coming out in the media, and for sure, I'm sure we'll find each other on a call here discussing it. So thanks again for your time today, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And have a good afternoon.